Kargil report came and the whole conservation fabric of Kerala changed. But there are certain things which probably were taken by this mining lobby, by the construction lobby, and they are the ones who actually misguided the people, and they came out so strongly against conservation and changed the whole conservation fabric. We have as many as 400 plus eco-sensitive zones which have been notified, but most of them are just on paper.
The place where this destruction has taken place on 30th of July, wee hours, there is a proposal of a tunnel for a hydel power 3 kilometers from that place of destruction. The general community in general would not be able to take the lead in this. Even if they take the lead, it will be influenced by the officers, bureaucrats, and even politicians.
Most successful forest officers are those who actually take from the community, who learn from the community.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the inaugural discussion of the Green Mandate Season 3, hosted by Vidhi Center for Legal Policy and supported by Rain Matter Foundation. Today's discussion will be focusing on the ESA ESZ approach in ecosystem conservation. And today we have with us Mr. Brij Kishore Singh, retired Indian Forest Services officer and a former Principal Chief Conservator of Forests in Karnataka, and Ms. Prakriti Srivastava, Indian Forest Services officer retired and former Principal Chief Conservator of Forests in Kerala. They will be in conversation with Debaditya Sinha, lead of Climate and Ecosystems team at Vidhi. Today's discussion will continue for 45 minutes, followed by a Q&A with the audience. So a little bit about the discussion today. Eco-sensitive zones and eco-sensitive areas have become vital tools for conserving critical ecosystems and wildlife habitats in human-dominated landscapes outside protected areas such as national parks and wildlife sanctuaries. Both ESAs and ESZs are notified by the MOFCC in consultation with the relevant state governments. And these notifications categorize activities into prohibited, regulated, and permitted to manage developmental activities within these notified areas. So recently, the MOFCC released a draft ESA notification for the Western Ghats, which is currently under public consultation. And additionally, 352 ESZs have been notified, with draft ESZs for more than 69 under consideration. We have been working on this issue for a couple of years now, and following this notification by the MOFCC, we thought that the time is ripe for a discussion on the subject. A little bit about our speakers today. Mr. Brij Kishore Singh is a retired IFS officer with nearly 38 years of dedicated service in Karnataka and a tenure with the Government of India. Throughout his career, he has held prominent positions, including the Chief Wildlife Warden and the PCCF in Karnataka. Notably, during his time as Deputy Conservator of Forests in Kollegal, he played a key role in the Veerappan manhunt, one of the largest operations by the Forest and Police Departments of Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. He is also featured in the Netflix series The Hunt for Veerappan. Mr. Singh served as a consultant for the National Tiger Conservation Authority, the Zoo Authority of Karnataka, and the Wildlife Institute of India, contributing to management effectiveness evaluation across India's protected areas. He is also an international reviewer for WWF's Conservation Assured Tiger Standards, with experience reviewing sites in India and Malaysia. Mr. Singh is also an accomplished author, having penned 4 books on forestry and conservation. He draws drawing from his extensive experiences in Karnataka's forests. He's also featured in national dailies such as the Deccan Herald and the Pioneer, and in various forestry magazines. His work sheds light on the challenges faced by the Indian forests, particularly in the Western Ghats, and he critiques the illegal exploitation that has occurred there over the years. He was also one of the members of Vidhi's 18-member high-level working group on the Forest Conservation Amendment Bill of 2023, which submitted its report to the Parliamentary Committee. Miss Prakriti Srivastava is also a retired Indian Forest Service officer from the 1990 Kerala cadre with a distinguished career in forestry and conservation. And throughout her service, she has held 6 territorial posts, including some of Kerala's most challenging divisions such as Wayanad, Palghat, and Munnar. Ms. Srivastava has tackled issues like timber and sandalwood smuggling, human wildlife conflict, and encroachment, leading efforts that resulted in the closure of illicit sandalwood factories and the notification of new national parks in Munnar. And as conservator of ecologically fragile lands, she was instrumental in framing the Kerala Ecological Fragile Lands Act of 2005, and later as the additional PCCF, she introduced scientific evaluations of carrying capacity for ecotourism. Under her leadership as managing director, the Kerala Forest Development Corporation reversed significant losses, achieving a historic profit. Ms. Srivastava has also initiated a scholarship fund for tribal girls, directly benefiting numerous students pursuing higher education. In her role as Deputy Inspector General of Forests Wildlife at the MOFCC, she led the drafting of the Wildlife Protection Bill of 2013 and was involved in key international conventions such as CITES, CMS, CBD, etc. She's played a pivotal role in framing guidelines for ESZs around protected areas and has contributed to the Gadgil Committee as an expert on ESZs. Her efforts also led to securing enhanced funding for voluntary relocation from Wayanad Wildlife Sanctuary, making it a model for non-tiger reserve areas. Ms. Srivastava's final posting as PCCF and Special Officer for Rebuild Kerala saw her successfully facilitate voluntary relocation of 640 families, adding 150 hectares to forest land. She's also recognized as one of the 10 most inspiring bureaucrats of 2023 by Indian Masterminds, and her contributions have left a lasting impact on conservation. They will be in conversation with Debaditya Sinha, who is a senior resident fellow and lead at the Climate and Ecosystems team at Vidhi. He's also the founder and trustee of Vindhyan Ecology and Natural History Foundation. He's a recipient of the Sanctuary Wildlife Service Award of 2019 and is a member of IUCN Species Survival Commission's Bear Specialist Group. Debaditya has also initiated several litigations in the NGT on issues pertaining to environment clearance, declaration of ESZs, and compensation for environmental damage. So join us today for an engaging discussion with 2 distinguished Indian Forest Services officers retired from top positions in the state forest departments as they share their insights and impact of ESZs and ESAs on the conservation of India's diverse ecosystems. Over to you, Debaditya.
So thank you, Shaili, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Before I begin this discussion, I just want to say that when we think of forest officers or India's conservation journey, BK Singh and Prakriti Srivastava role models, not just only for forest officers, but also conservationists and people who are working for forest and wildlife. And the best part about both of them is that they have not only worked for conservation on the ground as part of their own service, but they have also tried to shape the conservation policies and the conservation direction and various level, whatever posts they held. And even after retirement, when people usually like to take a break, going to different tours and all, I always find them very active, being vocal, writing articles, writing books, sending submissions to ministry committees. Prakriti ma'am is she tried just 2 years now?
1 year.
1 year, and she's been so much active. Recently, she's also part of some litigations I know she is part of. These issues, I think, this shows that you are conservationists at heart. So, irrespective of whether you are a forest officer or after retirement, you are doing your work as a stakeholder of the forest, which is inspirational. And I also had the opportunity to work with both of you on certain occasions, and I think you are the most selflessly working for conservation of forest and wildlife. And I just want to share that, it's always very inspiring, and personally, I get very much motivated by your energy, the level of energy which you bring whenever I talk to you on any issue or anything. So you always very much inspiring. So today, we will discussing the eco-sensitive areas and eco-sensitive zone. And Vidhi, as Shaili was saying, that we have been working on this issue since last several years now. And we have tried to raise the issue on various platforms. So there was an article in ST, there was a whole feature article in India Today a couple of years ago when the Supreme Court thing came out. And we found that 60% of the protected areas in India, they have 0 kilometer ESZ. So what is ESZ? What is ESZ? For that, we will discuss more. I'm not going to discuss right now. And especially after this Vineyard thing happened, with all the condolences to the families affected. And so this has been news, and this is not the first time. But I think this time there is a hype. I don't know for whatever reasons has been, because this is the 6th time this Western Ghats draft is notified by the ministry in at least last 10-12 years. And it's always like the draft will never becomes a final notification. The same thing happened with many of the protected areas. For example, Corbett doesn't have a ESZ till now. Kaziranga, for example, they don't have ESZ. And ESAs are a little bit different, that we will discuss but both are like serving similar purpose. So ma'am, sir, we are really honored to have you both today. And we look forward to learning from your experiences and knowledge. And on behalf of Vidhi and audience, I welcome you to be part of the mandate. Without wasting much time, so I will just ask the question to you, Prakriti, because you have been part of this ESZ committee when you are studying this ESZ, because we have worked mostly on ESZ. ESA is something which is like very few ESZs are there in India, like Aravali, Doon Valley, and Western Ghat, but ESZs are there for, I think, most of the nowadays mandate. And you are the person who actually drafted the guideline, 2011 guideline. And you have been also part of the Gadgil committee, which originally, I think the term, I'm not sure, the term was coined by Gadgil committee. It was eco-fragile zone that you can tell us in detail. So just to start with, I just want to know from you that what are ESZs, what are ESA, what are thoughts behind them initially, how they differ from each other, and what the purpose they serve.
Thank you, Devaditya. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's a great opportunity. Let me try to share the little bit of knowledge I have about it, and I hope it is helpful. So there's a lot of confusion which happens about eco-sensitive areas and eco-sensitive zones. What exactly are there? How did they originate? How do they differ from each other? So just to give a small background to it, that as we can understand from the simple word zone and area, it's simply, if you look at it that way, it is basically one is a zone, another is an area. And how did these originate is basically that it was the Environment Protection Act which came out in 1986. And that Environment Protection Act basically, they say, came out as an outcome of the Bhopal tragedy. And once that Environment Protection Act came out, it was basically about controlling polluting industries and ensuring that pollution was less. So therefore, at that point of time when that EPA came out in 86, the first proposal we saw of an eco-sensitive area was actually the Murud Janjira area, where exactly there was a ship repair industry going to be set up. So that actually got a lot of environmentalists very concerned, and they went against it and said that this is not correct, and therefore they wanted it not to be set up there. And probably that is where this whole issue of eco-sensitive areas come from. And areas, naturally, they look at larger areas and maybe look at townships or stations where they are actually ecologically sensitive, or they have certain attributes ecologically which need to be protected. So that was one of the first ones which started. It was in 1989 that this Murud Janjira eco-sensitive area was first taken up. After that, it resulted in many more which came up. The second one was the Doon Valley in 1989. After that, you came up, there were many, Dhanau was another one which is there, which got a final notification also. So this is how the whole thing of eco-sensitive areas came about, and it was all an outcome of the Environment Protection Act. So that is where we see that lot of areas were seen based on the fragility and or the sensitivity, and they were decided to be notified, or some sort of industrial activity was supposed to have been reduced there. So that is where the eco-sensitive areas come from, and therefore it is not to be confused with eco-sensitive zones. Now the eco-sensitive zones actually is also something which relies on the Environment Protection Act. But how its origin comes about is by the Indian Board for Wildlife, which came about in 2001, and in 2002 they actually gave a particular direction in their findings, or in their resolution that they took. That's when they said that there was a point 9 in which they said that all the protected areas, that is national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, should be having some 10 kilometers radius, which should actually be like a zone, and it's called the eco-sensitive zone. So, and that again, because the Wildlife Protection Act had no such provision, it again relied on the this Environment Protection Act for getting its sanctity. So these eco-sensitive zones at that point of time were decided to be 10 kilometers, and therefore in around that time itself, around 2005, from the ministry, all the states were informed that now please go ahead and give us your proposals and give us the eco-sensitive zone that needs to be notified. However, there was a pushback naturally, and they said that it is too wide an area. All our developmental activities will be stopped, and it is going to be problematic, and therefore nobody literally submitted it. And then there was the Goa Foundation case Goa submitted its eco-sensitive zone, and where it gave 0 kilometers and said that is going to be our eco-sensitive zone. So there again, the Goa Foundation went to the court and then got an order saying that no, it's not like that, that you have to give these eco-sensitive zones, and they are supposed to be 10 kilometers, and the Supreme Court gave an order saying that do it within 4 weeks' time, otherwise it will be considered that this is the 10 kilometers which is the area which will be the zone, and there is no change in it. Then people started giving these, some of them started giving, but then again, what happened is the issue came to a pass when they said that okay, it's fine if you give us site-specific plans for it. Again, there was no traction, and finally, how it happened that they started moving was when this Noida bird sanctuary, that issue came up, and when the park was being made, that elephant park which was being made at that point of time. So again they went to court, and at that point of time the Supreme Court said, well, how do you expect these eco-sensitive area zones to be identified and notified when you've given no guidelines? So this is in 2011 that happened, 2010-11, and that is the point that we ensured that the guidelines are framed. That is the guidelines which I was involved in, and I helped in the framing of it. And that is when it started. It took some sort of speed, and at this point of time we have as many as 400 plus. Actually, I found out 400 plus areas have got these notified eco-sensitive zones. So that is what the eco-sensitive zones are, and that is what eco-sensitive areas are. As I told you, eco-sensitive areas, they are larger areas, and you find that they are there are right now only 6 which are actually notified eco-sensitive areas, as we can see in the MOEF website. It started with the Doon Valley. Again, Murud Jhanjira is not mentioned in that. Yep. Then Doon Valley, you have the Danau, and then you have Bhagirathi, which is I think more recent, and then there is Matheran, and then there is Panchgani. So these are the main ones. There are 6 of them which have been notified, and Mount Abu. So these are the ones which are the areas which are there. So this is the basic origin of it, or where they came up and how it is different from each other. But they both rely on the this Environment Protection Act, and they have similarities in the way they are planned, in the way they are what are the attributes which are there for how to identify it and notify. They are similar to that. One point that I'd like to bring before I finish this point is that we just saw that the Wildlife Protection Act was amended. But please do note that again they have not brought in the eco-sensitive zones in the Wildlife Protection Act, which should have actually been given legal sanctity under the Wildlife Protection Act. But it still relies on the EPA only and not on the this particular Wildlife Protection Act. So this is the basic difference.
Thank you, ma'am. And just to summarize what you said, and with two brief points, is that ESAs are basically for landscapes, not necessarily linked to any sanctuary national park, and ESZs are the zones around the national park sanctuaries. This is the fundamentally the difference. Otherwise, the law and everything is same. I think regulation prohibited also similar.
Not really, because that's what, when I told you about this eco-sensitive areas where they were formulated and they decided upon, they relied a lot on a Pranab Sen committee report.
Okay.
So this Pranab Sen committee report came out in 2000, and in that actually they have identified the sensitivity of an area based on three factors basically. That was on species, then on ecosystems, and geomorphological ecosystem areas. So these were the basic parameters on which it was based. Whereas when we made the eco-sensitive zones, we took it on activities that can be done. That is, we took it as prohibited, like mining, etc., completely prohibited. Then you have the ones which are regulated, and then that means that can be allowed based on certain parameters or certain permissions that are given, and those which are actually free, or they can be actually done, for example using solar power or something like that. Those are encouraged. So in a way they are slightly different as to the parameters of
Actually, ma'am, because as you mentioned, most of these ESA declared long ago, but the Western Ghat ESA, they follow the same ESZ guideline which you drafted. The prohibited regulatory things are there. I will come to this point later on. We'll discuss. There are different questions people have that I will ask you. But sir, you have, first I want to know, when you retired that time, this ESA was proposed or it was still pending?
Yeah. Eco-sensitive areas, when I retired, this was the pipeline, it was going on, proposals were there. In fact, parallelly, tiger reserves, Wildlife Protection Act was amended, and tiger reserves, they had buffer zones. And these buffer zones, and as long back as 1963, Karnataka Forest Act provided for buffer zone for each forest. Very important. All of you must make a note of it. Buffer zone for each reserve forest and protected forest. And what was that buffer zone of 1963 Karnataka Forest Act? And that was also corroborated by Revenue Act. Although the areas which are outside the notified forest, up to 100 meters from the boundary of a notified forest, it used to be buffer zone. For every forest there used to be buffer zone, which has slowly disappeared. It has all been consumed by the people, by our inaction, because of our action, inaction, etc., etc. Let me not go into the details. The second time in 2004-5, when Wildlife Protection Act was being amended for being a chapter on Tiger Conservation Authority was being included, that time buffer zone had a different meaning. That meaning was that every tiger reserve should have a buffer zone all round. It is basically like Prakriti was talking, that all PH should have, when she was DIG in Wildlife, MOEF and CC, then the direction was issued that all PH should have this eco-sensitive zone, ESZ, and Supreme Court said 10 kilometers, but then it was negotiated with Supreme Court and it was brought down. Some people said it should be 0 kilometers in some place, 10 it has a varying width. It is, those are from mathematics background, I will give a beautiful word, annular strip all around the PA. Annular strip, ANNULAR. The ESZ are nothing but annular strips all around the PA. On the same lines, this tiger reserve also. So when I was, now the tiger reserve's core and buffer had picked up faster than ESZ of PS. It has. I was Chief Wildlife Warden in 2009 in Karnataka. So that time the NTCA-MS complained to me what works my predecessor did not do. And I won't name the predecessor, but what work he did. So that time he said, साहब बफर जोन नहीं नोटिफाई करवाए, 2 टाइगर रिजर्व का करवाए, 3 का नहीं करवाए. So this used to be the talk of 2008, 2009, that all the wildlifers in the states, especially the tiger states, were busy notifying the buffer areas around the tiger reserves. And this ESZ, the concept of eco-sensitive zone, it came little later. I think after Prakriti said she issued a guideline in 2011, thereon it picked up. I was still the Chief Wildlife Warden. I was Chief Wildlife Warden for almost 3 years there in Karnataka. So even in 2011-12, that guidelines came down, it trickled down to us, and then it was forwarded to various officers. And 2012 I left wildlife, and then went as MD of the corporation, Forest Corporation of Karnataka, and then went as PCCF head of Forest Force, and finally 2013 June and I retired also. But those things, MD of the corporation and PCCF, HOFF, that went very fast. But wildlife, I had lot of things in my mind still, and so up to 2013, I was, since HOFF, head of Forest Force, so I was quite in touch with it, and I knew by about 2013, ESZ for PAs had only started. It had started, whereas buffer zone for tiger reserve had almost completed.
So, sir, if I can ask you, can you explain how the buffer zone differ from the core, just in simple terms, if for a layperson? See,
of tiger reserves.
Yes, core and buffer. What is the difference, like in terms of regulation, in terms of restriction?
Yeah. There are, in fact, around the tiger reserves. See, one of the main reasons why human-tiger conflict, because of the conservation, probably the tiger numbers went down, going up everywhere in most tiger reserves, and as a result, then tiger, being a territorial animal, it has to fight for retaining the territory. Otherwise, it has to be pushed out. And once the tiger is pushed out of the reserve, then what happens? Then it goes to the human areas. Now, to have a sort of education and awareness campaign, intensive education and awareness campaign in human areas around the tiger reserve, what was thought was, why not have a buffer zone? So that buffer zone was forest areas where there were restrictions, there were activities permitted, there were activities prohibited, activities regulated, as was there in her guidelines of 2011. Almost the same guideline. I think this 2011 guidelines of ESZ was by and large because this buffer zone came little earlier. Buffer zone of 2008 it had come. So tiger reserves were 3 years ahead, and so by and large the same restrictions, same in tiger buffer, in the buffer zone of the tiger reserves also there are ranges. There are, in fact, few states will have a buffer division and core division. There is one DFO looking after the 1 or 2 maybe core, and maybe one looking after all round. Also in some cases buffer zone were not available all round the core. It was only for the part of the core. For example, Bandipur Tiger Reserve of Karnataka, it has Tamil Nadu and Kerala at its neighbors. Even the Tiger Reserve have Tiger Reserve neighbors. Tamil Nadu's Madhumalai and Kerala's Wayanad. Now these two are Tiger Reserve. So this obviously the buffer zone of Bandipur Tiger Reserve was only comprised of areas, human areas especially, and some forest area. The areas which are not being were not managed by the wildlife division, that was managed by territorial division. All those areas in Karnataka that comprise the Bandipur buffer zone. I remember Jairam Ramesh was minister. That time he was very much interested कि कम से कम एक तो notify करो. So if you remember, the first buffer zone of the Tiger Reserve in the country was of Bandipur. That was notified in 2009-10 only, and Jairam Ramesh took a lot of interest. All the files went up and down ministry to this place. I think you must have been in the ministry that time. And 2010-11, somewhere around that period, buffer zones were not only proposed, they were notified also. Later, to our bad luck, you know how the administration tries to take U-turn. Later, some politicians said कि वो सब buffer zone में कर दिया तो हमारे development का क्या होगा? Then they said buffer zone को फिर modify करो. Similar, by 2015, Hosmat is an officer of 1982 batch. Karnataka, he worked as Chief Wildlife Warden of the state. Lot of ESZ in Karnataka were now notified, and even ministry had notified by 2015-16, and those are very important areas. He has taken a lot of pain to see that 3 to 4 to 5 kilometers all round kilometers of annular strip all round the PA was maintained as the ESZ. But then it underwent lot of modification. In fact, a set of politicians in 2016-17, present Chief Minister was Chief Minister then also, and in fact he got angry with Hosmat and he said, no, he bekar aadmi hai isko. Take him as MD of the corporation.
So sir, continue conversation.
हाँ, continue.
So
आप रोक दिया कीजिए क्योंकि मैं तो किसी दिशा में बह जाऊंगा.
इसलिए बैठे हुए यहाँ पे. So ma'am, next question from you. So basically there was a time when this kind of reforms were being made. There was a political support for conservation. There was some sporadic like times when minister were interested, maybe. But we have seen even for buffer zone was an example. But ESZ, there has been a lot of resistance and states were not willing to declare ESZ. That's when the Supreme Court said if you don't declare ESZ, then 10 kilometers is deemed ESZ, or you declare it. Then suddenly there's a push for declaration of ESZ responsible because they are whatever. When they realized 10 kilometers was zyada ho gaya, so let's declare it. And in that process, there have been a lot of compromises in the process or procedure which we have also observed. So first I want to know from you, like what kind of pressures does the ministry or the state forest division who are interested to declare ESZ in a proper way, what this kind of the various resistance you face, like why the states were not willing to? Because what I understand is ESZs are not supposed to be very much prohibited. This is how ESZ guideline, when you wrote it, that you mentioned that it is not supposed to prohibit people from their day-to-day work, and the message should be that ESZs were coexistent, nothing like that. But still, state has been very much resisting this thing. So, what is the thing like? In this case, what are various reasons that states are not
interested in doing
yes,
it?
Yes.
Okay. So let me answer it maybe a bit controversially also.
Definitely.
But let me say it in this way that. You see that once a few areas were declared as forest, reserve forests or protected areas, basically the whole administration and people in general just wanted us to restrict ourselves to those areas only for conservation. They did not want us to come out and try to ensure that there is ecological security for the country. Now, why that is, I think it's very easy to understand. It's all about money, I think, and power. So people derive the sense of maybe the people who are holding power derive their power from the fact that they have control over the resources. They can have buildings, they can develop, and there's a vote bank, and therefore that gets them popularity. And it is not that if they come and speak for conservation or for ensuring ecological security that they would get the popularity that they want. And their existence, their political existence is at stake there. So very often I see that forest officers are told that, oh, you're not doing your job. But let us be very realistic about it, that it is the whole society which actually is ensuring this, and forest officers or basically are ensuring that they get along. They manage their situation rather than take a stand which is proactive, which will damage their careers also. So I would keep that as one of the reasons. So that is one of the reasons which has not allowed these eco-sensitive zones or areas to actually be actively identified in the way they should be, notified and actually implemented. That has really not happened. After that also, because the Supreme Court said that, look, your 10 kilometers will be your deemed eco-sensitive area, you like it or not, then there was some movement, and especially once this guideline came, they thought that okay, now we can work with this, because there is no longer that it has to be 10 kilometers or there has to be an annual ring or something like that. So we can make certain site-specific plans. But I will tell you some examples of how actually I'm not very enthusiastic about what has happened or how this whole thing has panned out, because right now we have as many as 400 plus eco-sensitive zones which have been notified, but most of them are just on paper. Why I say that again is that you see that it's not enough to notify it. The fact remains that otherwise you have that the Supreme Court very clearly said, look, it's 10 kilometers. Unless you come up with a very site-specific area which is finally notified. So therefore, they wanted to get over this 10 kilometers. They said, okay, let's find the site-specific thing and make a proposal so that we can get over this 10 kilometer. So they went ahead and made these site-specific proposals. Once these were made also, that was not enough, because there was a very clear direction to all the states saying that, look, you have to make a zonal master plan. The zonal master plan for this eco-sensitive area comes together through all the line departments. They contribute based on the prohibited, regulated and permissible items, and then you make the plan, and that plan is implemented and monitored by a monitoring committee. Then only it gets done. But believe me that almost no zonal master plan has been made. Most of these areas have no monitoring committee because it is not there, and now they are no longer bothered about the 10 kilometer which actually stands. In the absence of this master plan and this monitoring committee, it actually the 10 kilometer stands. So now you are all very comfortable that you have this notification and you do not have to abide by the 10 kilometers also. So it's for them, they are on a winning position. But who's losing actually? It is again our ecological security which is losing. Okay, I'll give you the example of Kerala, and then that is a very stark example of how things have panned out. Till today, even one eco-sensitive zone final notification is not there. Kerala has not bothered to follow even the 10 kilometer area of Supreme Court direction of that you have to take all clearances from the NBWL, the standing committee NBWL, for any type of diversion that you do. They don't take that clearance. So that 10 kilometer was anyway had no sanctity for them. Now they have come up with certain draft notifications for eco-sensitive zones. Those draft notifications have not culminated in a final notification. So they are not bothered about that also. So it's a free-for-all. So what eco-sensitive zone? Besides that, that's what they have done in Kerala, that they have taken all these areas which are, otherwise it's supposed to be even revenue areas, that which are around the protected area, even those should be included. They have not taken that. They have only taken the reserve forests which are around all these protected areas, and they are already governed by the Indian Forest Act. They don't need any extra protection. There is no question of doing mining there without, getting a permission or making a road, except it is for forest use or whatever. So it's already governed by the Indian Forest Act. What's the need for having an eco-sensitive zone? What is the need for these prohibited and regulated items? But those are the areas that they have included, and the revenue areas they have not included. Okay, so that is how they have even made their proposals for the eco-sensitive zones. So therefore, I did ask a few, because I can speak very, with a lot of authority over what's happening in Kerala. But I did inquire about other states. So to that extent, I can say, let me not be very pessimistic when I say that as far as mining is concerned, to some extent, they are not doing it within that 1 kilometer area. Okay, but again, please remember, it does not come so much from the eco-sensitive zone notification. It comes from a Supreme Court order of 2006, August 4th, where the Supreme Court said that within 1 kilometer of national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, you cannot do mining. So it comes from that. It doesn't come from this only. Okay, so this is where it stands. So while we can say that some national parks and wildlife sanctuaries, they have done some good work and they have tried to take care of real issues, but mostly I think it is just to overcome the issue of the Supreme Court and sort of manage it in the way they want it rather than actually do ecological security or conservation.
Thank you, ma'am. Actually, in our study that we done ESZ, the ESA, we found that maximum ESZ was 48 kilometers. I don't remember it is case of Assam or Tamil Nadu.
Okay.
Top two maximum area was in case of these two. And Kerala, of course, we didn't have that information. But this is interesting because what ESZs were supposed to do is also create this network, like this connectivity between the protected area. It was also one of the functions, not only the annular ring. The guideline which was 2011 clearly says if there are nearby protected area, then you have to ensure that the corridor is also part of it. Therefore also, but this thing, I think only Kanha Pench corridor, this thing is followed. But other than that, I'm not aware of this.
Yeah, very true. In fact, that's what we did. We were, in fact, when I was formulating it, along with my team. So we were very particular. That's why you see somewhere we've written very clearly that it's the 10 kilometers is what Supreme Court said, but you need not stick to it. Please, it can go beyond also if there is an area which is important for ecological conservation. It should include wildlife corridors. We put it into the guideline. But as I said, that is what we really need to do a study and find out exactly how these eco-sensitive zones have been actually identified, how they have been notified, and what is the value, ecological value they are adding for conservation. So that's very important.
Yes. So also in our study we found that one of the major reason that ESZ has been zero was the interstate boundary shared by the protected area. Now surprisingly, the Supreme Court has taken a lot of it's made it very uncertain because see what happened was 3 years ago, Supreme Court said that minimum ESZ should be 1 kilometer across all the Central National Park. Then after 1 year, the judge said no, if we keep 1 kilometer ESZ and if you don't allow construction of houses, it will lead to more human-wildlife conflict. I don't know by what scientific reasoning has been there. I'm sure the judge has said something, so there has been some rationale behind it. And said mining is only banned and we should allow people to build houses and whatever. That is fine. That is what the court has said, but there has always uncertainty which has come from the courts, and the court have intervened in the policy, how I'm telling you. For example, in the guideline it said that if there is some water resource or if there are some interstate boundary, then both the states should talk to each other and then they should come up with the ESZ. This is the guideline says. But what we saw is that the states had declared ESZ only in their own state, and there are many examples. And they have not notified anything on the other side. When we asked why, wo to Bihar ka hai, wo to Rajasthan ka hai, they will do it. But my surprise, Supreme Court has said it is understood if there is some river or there is some interstate boundary, then there will be zero ESZ. Now, the Supreme Court went one step ahead, commented on a contrary to the policy which is made by emissions guideline. Then again it says you have to follow the emissions guideline 2011. So, this I think is maybe the lawyer who is arguing, they may not have taken the, because see, once Mr. Shandiwan was talking somewhere and he said that environment matters also needs specialist litigant plus specialist lawyers who can convey the message to the. So this kind of complications are there, and you can imagine the kind of fate compensation we have, because once you have these orders, immediately there are real estate builders and all these things, they are building things, and once something is there, then you explain that political and commercial interests are there. But sir, I want to know from you, because you have been one of the very most vocal person who has always said whatever you think is right, spoke your mind. One of the major critique of the ESA, without taking sides, I just want to mention you here, that people are saying that ESA, again it is top-down approach. Like ministry is imposing something, the state is pushing for this thing, and community has no say in it. It is imposed on them, and that's why we want that things should come from the community and they should be managing, protecting this thing. But from your experience, I also want from your experiential perspective, any comment on this top-down approach and this community conservation? what works best, or in your experience, of course, it's just different in different states, but from your experience, what do you think, anything on is...
Yeah, no doubt. Forest department has to connect with the community. The bottom-up approach would work, but from the top also, because in this system the bureaucracy does not work unless there is a goal set either by Supreme Court or maybe by MOEF or the top bureaucrats in the state itself. So what in this case, all the PAs, which some of the officers of 2015, 16, 17 have tried to bring ESZ all around the PAs, those officers have succeeded, like Hosmar was telling. They have succeeded. But then as Prakriti was talking, that many cases, many proposals are only at the draft stage. The final notification have not taken place, even in Karnataka. And like Supreme Court telling that with up to 1 kilometer there can be, there should be no mining, no quarrying. But it is the mining and quarrying lobby very close to Bangalore. There is a national park called Bannerghatta National Park. And very close to Bangalore, that national park, the mining has been going on right on the periphery of the national park. So now the eco-sensitive zone for that was already once notified, but there was a pressure from the state to the center that we redraw the line. So that is also going on. So now this community is it is a very silent spectator. In general, the community, it is the forest department which will go and coax and guide them and make them tell something. Generally, they need education. They have to be coaxed by the forest department. That the community involvement. Lot of when this community connection was going on, when it was being initiated. So when the senior officers would visit, many a times range officer would go and coax them and tell them कि अगर साहब ये सवाल करें तो ये उत्तर देना, ये करें तो. So it is that type of situation where in this country it is not like the Western countries that they have developed and they are more educated. They know what is right, what is wrong, what is right for environment or what is wrong for environment. But in our case, the community generally takes, barring a few vocal people who become politicians, who either are the district president or state president of a party or are MLAs and ministers. So barring few politicians, the general community in general would not be able to take the lead in this. And even if they take the lead, it will be influenced by the officers, bureaucrats, and even politicians.
What civil society also, like they are working closely with the communities. So
yeah, that's it.
A lot of conservation happens with the help of civil society and community. In case of many, we have seen that. Some good work is also been going on.
Definitely.
But when it comes to this kind of ESA, the problem with the reason ESA was brought up to ensure that the development doesn't become unsustainable. So, and community at large, one has to define, like, when we say community, who are these communities? So, do you think that if you say that, do you have any good example where, like, community conservation has been successful or it has been backfired? Any bad or good examples you have?
No, there are large number of examples where, when the forestry production, when the fast growing timber species like Acacia auriculiformis was grown with the help of the community, and the timber has been allowed to grow. In Western Ghat, things grow very fast, and in about 10-12 years time, Acacia auriculiformis have been harvested in 12 to 15 years time as a timber of 2 meter girth. Those who can understand, and it can be marketed very well. So from there they got 50% money went to the community, 50% came to the forest. Of course, barring the expenses deduct the expenses, and then it was shared on the 50-50 basis in some of the forest areas which were originally of 0.4 and below density. This 50% sharing of profit was allowed. So there are large number of examples. Those who have got money after 15 years. In my own service period, as a DC of Shimoga is a place in heart of the Western Ghat, Deputy Conservator of Forest Shimoga, I had planted few areas, few ranges of Western Ghat, and as Managing Director of the Forest Corporation, I have an opportunity to harvest my own plantation. So it happens, like I say, agricultural farmers normally say the gestation period is very high, but the communities were very happy. They got half the produce, the benefit, and they were very happy. So these are very success stories. And then you tell them, then they understand. At that time, they are on a different frequency. They know after 15 years, even if they are not alive, their children will get something. And so on and so forth. So it has a lot of advantage, lot of plus points. Once it has been demonstrated in some of the Western Ghat divisions, because other areas of Karnataka, things will not grow in 15 years. They will not get any benefit. घास से उतना पैसा नहीं आएगा. पैसा कहाँ से आता? कैसे agricultural farmers की timber से आएगा. So इस तरह से if the Western Ghat, because of the richness of Western Ghat, good soil, good rainfall, temperature, and then sun is vertically shining on you because you are in close to equator. So you have got all these advantages. And then
so basically, you are saying that when the benefits are shared with the community, they also become stakeholder and they also contribute to conservation.
And then they come forward and then they become over enthusiastic also at times. That is useful. But in areas like say Gulbarga, वहाँ कुछ भी नहीं grow करेगा. आप कुछ भी, even if you irrigate it every day, so those areas, they are like in Ballari, nothing will grow. But if the iron ore mining of Ballari has destroyed those best Sandur forests. Now, since nothing can grow there, and the hillocks which are barren will always remain barren. And in the process of destruction, we are making the green hillocks barren, and the barren hillocks disappear. And one day what happens? That barren hillock comes down on sleeping villagers. Landslides I am talking.
We'll come to question later on because we are
ठीक है, हम उनको प्रोवोक करते रहते हैं.
Question में टाइम मिलेगा आपको. तो first let me ask the questions I have. But ma'am, I mean, like in the case of ESZ and ESA, we have seen most of the protests have been on this ground that people see, because I think there has been also some lack of awareness or whatever you can say. Usually people think that if ESZ gets declared, our rights will be affected, our lands will be taken out, we will be displaced, our development will be affected, we cannot do farming, we cannot run homestay, we cannot, whatever earning tourism is there, it will be cut off. So all these kind of things are there, and these are very genuine concerns of people, apprehensions are there. And in case of Western Ghat, yes, also if you see the media narrative, like people with what reports we get, in case of others also in Kaziranga and many places where this, there are also issues of Gram Sabha, like Forest Rights Act, where people have shown apprehension that, there are two aspects to it. One is saying, if we have rights, then why you are declaring this? Other aspect is that, although in a ESA, ESZ is saying that Gram Sabha consent will be mandatory, but some cases the community rights were not given till date, they are not settled. So these are concerns which comes from people who are working on the ground. So first of all, whether this thing that is true, that it will affect their livelihood, it will uproot them from their houses, they cannot build their houses, they cannot develop. And secondly, as I said, this whole Gram Sabha and forest right thing, how it plays with the ESZ, ESA notification, how it affects.
So let me just answer it this way, that first of all, that apprehension that it is going to impact people's day-to-day living is an absolutely wrong premise, and I think that was actually fanned by a lot of politicians and other groups who were interested in getting the people to speak against it. For example, if you look at the eco-sensitive zone guidelines, it's very clearly said that people's day-to-day living is not going to be impacted at all. If you look at the prohibited items, what is it? It's mining. Would anyone like that beside their house there is a mining going on? So these are the type of things that were said to be prohibited. The other things that were there were supposed to be regulated. And then there were permissible items. So if you look at it, there was not a single item in it which would impact the daily living of a person living in that particular area. So in fact, that's why we took out so many clarifications at that point of time saying that, look, we all want planned living. And if a planned settlement is there, or a planned landscape is there, that will be the best thing for everyone. So that's all we are saying, that look, it's good for you. You'll not have mining, you'll not have polluting industries, you'll not have big sawmills there. So that's all that is there. So that whole concept that is going to impact daily living or daily people's activities is a false narrative, and that was deliberately fanned by people who were having an interest, because they would not be able to come out and say, we don't want this. So it is, you give this sort of propaganda to the people, so they will come and say, oh, we don't want it because we are going to be impacted. So that is the first point that I would like to say. Most of these type of pushbacks that we get from the people is because of giving them wrong information and getting them to do an agitation as if they are the ones impacted, whereas it is wrong propaganda that is given to them against conservation. That is the first point I want to make. The second point that I want to make is that 2023 court order that came out actually spread a lot of confusion. Now, if you look at that, whereas the guidelines very clearly says that you can live your life, do your agriculture, you want to build another room in your building, please go ahead, there's no problem. But what the Supreme Court order at that point said, that any activity that you are doing and you want to continue doing that, you have to get within 6 months of permission from the PCCF and off. That was not envisaged in the guidelines at all. So where did this come from? Then they said another part that layer that they put in, that within 1 kilometer of that whole eco-sensitive zone, you are prohibited from doing any activity. That again was not as a part of the guideline, because that means you stop a person from building his own house, making modifications. That was not envisaged. So actually that is what brought in a lot of hue and cry from the public. And I say that because I was in Kerala, still in service last year that was. And at that point of time, people reacted very strongly, and then there was a lot of propaganda. They started saying every house is going to be demarcated, everyone is going to be enlisted, whereas that was not the case. So we actually moved at that point and said to the Supreme Court, Kerala also did that, filed an affidavit saying that, look, please uphold the guidelines. Don't come up with something that was not, either you uphold the guidelines or give a new order. You can't say that both exist. So that is when in 2023 they modified the order and said, look, we uphold the guideline itself. But this is what spreads confusion, as you said, that when people don't understand the issue fully and start talking about it, that is when you result in a lot of confusion. So that is what I would like to say about the second part, about how this confusion which happened last 2 years, which was going on, but how it has sort of resolved right now. Okay, so that is the second part. The third part, again, I will say that this is what is happening, that most conservation issues actually, by people react against it, is because of propaganda by pressure groups. Now, it is the mining lobby, like I tell you in the Gadgil case, which is very clear. What happened in that? It was, in fact, I am speaking from my personal experience, that I was so proud to be a Kerala cadre forest officer, because this extent of support you got for conservation, the support you got for, doing things which are pro-conservation was immense, and you could rely on the media, you could rely on the people, you could rely on NGOs, and they would come and support you for that. But this was prior to Gadgil. Gadgil report came and the whole conservation fabric of Kerala changed. And there was just no support at all for conservation. Otherwise, that was the first thing. We would just talk to a media person and say, this is what's happening, please help us. And they would be out there. All support just went away after that. And it is again, because if you look at the Gadgil report and you look at it very carefully, there are so many good points in it. But there are certain things which probably were taken by this mining lobby, by the construction lobby, and they are the ones who actually misguided the people, and they came out so strongly against conservation and changed the whole conservation fabric. So I really believe that most conservation issues are not taken forward the way they should be, because there are these pressure groups and vested interest groups which actually ensure that those things don't happen, because they have their own pass buck to make and their own axe to grind. I hope it answers what you mean.
No, definitely. I think thanks for the response. So, sir, coming to you, I just want to talk something about the recent Western Ghats ESA, which is separate from the ESZ, but the things are pretty similar because it follows the ESZ model. So it has three kind of activities: prohibited, permissible, and regulated. Now it clearly says no red category of industry should be set up in the ESA in the draft proposal. At the same time, it also says hydropower projects will be allowed. And hydropower is a red category activity as per the CPC's own thing. So what do you think? The first is that whether hydropower, allowing hydropower is good or bad, although regulated, but anyway hydropower is regulated under EI notification. So what good does this ES notification does is only banning mining. Apart from that, it has all the thing, and it's diluted form, like, as what I diluted in terms of activities, which is there. I'm not talking about the local people, of course, that is so sacrosanct, but in terms of industry activities. So they have given so many things under regulated that you have to follow EA notification, that anyway you have to follow. But what is the reason that hydropower is exempted in the ES notification itself? One is this power storage projects which are planned, and whether it contradicts the ESA's standards if you allowing. So I want to know from you the impact of hydropower and whether this should be part of the ESA or it should be completely.
Yeah. Now there are multiple questions. In fact, you have asked. So, yesterday our Indian cabinet has also approved 23,000 megawatt hydropower project potential which we have in the country, and it has been said that potential must be harnessed. Now hydropower, where is the hydropower? Where is the potential? It is in Western Ghat only. Can you have hydropower in Ballari? Can you have hydropower in dry areas? Hydropower also destroys the forest, and hydropower is one of the, and all the hydropowers, if you see the location, they are all located in prime forest area, pristine forest areas. Like Kerala's Wayanad, I am told the place where this destruction has taken place on 30th of July, wee hours, there is a proposal of a tunnel for a hydropower 3 kilometers from that place of destruction. Now, the entire Western Ghat has already a lot of hydropowers, and if you are not satisfied, then there is no end. Then more and more Wayanad will happen, more frequently it will happen, it will be more destructive. And so now the hydropower potential is always there in the forest. Now I'll tell you another thing. Some of you, have you heard of Sakleshpura, that Siradi Ghat, where Bangalore road passes, and there is a place, there is a fragile area. I will tell you, I will speak on how fragile the area is and why the area is fragile and what should we do in fragile type of areas. That I can take it up separately. But right now I'll tell you, lot of eyes to set right that road, because every time during rains the traffic stops, it is to be diverted, taking another 40-50 kilometers extra to reach Bangalore from Bangalore. So now that Siradi Ghat, I am told Gadkari ji, the minister, he has suggested a tunnel, underground tunnel. I don't know whether it is practically feasible or not, but those are the areas where there is a clay soil. Western Ghat has two types of background, two types of soil. The clay soil. The other part is quartz and hematite, where there are iron rods, especially Maharashtra portion and northern Karnataka portion, northern Western Ghats in Karnataka areas, whereas southern Western Ghats in Karnataka. Further southern is Kerala and Tamil Nadu. But I am talking of southern Western Ghat in Karnataka. This is a very fragile area. This is all having a lot of clay soil. And clay soil, what happens? Clay soil, the beauty of clay soil, it is negatively charged, and with water, when it rains, when it is fully charged, then with lot of water, it expands. It has a very good bonding with water, and as a result, it swells. Clay soil expands, and then big boulders, each of 2 tons boulders, like the one what happened in Wayanad, would come rolling down 6 kilometer to 8 kilometer and would destroy somebody's house. So what is important is that in the clay soil area, which are very, very susceptible, very vulnerable for destruction, if somebody thinks of hydel project tomorrow, where your underground tunnel, what destruction it would cause is not known. And therefore, some of those roads, I think, it is better to take the long route. It is better to take that 40 kilometers extra than repeatedly trying for Sirari Ghat. And Sirari Ghat alignment, every 3 years, the road alignment changes. And what do you mean, what do you understand by changing the road alignment? What do you understand? You sacrifice more and more forest because the entire ghat is forested. You sacrifice another set of forest to take another alignment. You sacrifice, 3rd year you sacrifice another set of 200 hectares of forest to go through the 3rd alignment, etc., etc. And so, therefore, we should. Another important project is hydel project is not hydel project. It is pump storage project. There is a difference in the two.
Okay.
The difference, I am not a very technical person to say. They say that
So this is basically big reservoir where you pump using electricity for the water, storing the energy as a potential.
And during night time, when electricity is surplus, then you pump it back to the higher reservoir.
Yeah. So because the issue is with the renewable, it is not a constant source. So if you want to have industries and everything, you need a constant, which coal is regulate. And so basically the thing is that either you store electricity in lithium ion technology, which is also has its own thing. So that is how they are suggesting that pump storage schemes are better because you can store the electricity in the big water kind of reservoir, and when you need, you slowly regulate the flow and you get the power.
That is what, and therefore, and when you have extra energy, extra power, then during the night you can pump it up, and you can again, the same cycle can continue. Next day again, power can be generated. 3rd day again, power can be generated. So, but the destruction you will inflict to the environment, the destruction you will inflict to the forest, and the background, you just go to the background, and I was telling you, basically I was dividing those portions of Western Ghat in 2 types of soil. The northern Western Ghat of Karnataka has hematite, quartzite base, the parent material, whereas the southern Western Ghat of Karnataka is having the clay soil. Now, the clay, it can be very deadly, and what happened, Wayanad is also part of the clay soil. And those who are from botany background, they should understand, in that portion, in the portion where there is no clay, Xylea xylocarpa is a tree. Xylea xylocarpa will dominate. It will withstand the fire, yet it will come up. Next year again you set fire in the forest, you will have more of Xylea xylocarpa seedlings coming up. But this portion, the portion in Wayanad and portion in Kodagu of Karnataka and the Sakleshpura, where this for the road every time they will take a new alignment. These areas are predominantly of clay, and there are a lot of waterfalls. You harness all those waterfalls for the hydroelectric potential. You are destroying all the forests. Coorg is full of waterfalls. One of the stories, 3 years back, Tal Kaveri, it originates from a place in Coorg where, and there is a temple also. Because Kaveri का उद्गम है, तो वहाँ पे पूजा और लोग हम भी जाते हैं तो हम भी in the service also I went and did pranam, and even now if I after the service also, so that is a very important place. उसके priest 3-4 priests and they all have a regular job there for performing puja. So one of the landslides right at the Udgam where Kaveri originates, one of the landslide, one day those sleeping Pujari families, some 3 families were buried under the debris, the landslide. So those are very, very fragile areas, especially the clay soil areas. Clay का दूसरा गुण है, clay can, it has a lot of potential, because when when the drilling takes place for the metro or for any overhead bridge or over flyover, etc., when the drilling takes place in the ground, it is the diamond cutter which goes on drilling. But with that, some clay and water is poured, it accelerates. It has the potential. So that is the type of potential. Therefore, you should be cautious. Therefore, there should be no hydroelectric project where there is a apparent material is clay.
So, thank you, sir.
Can I just add
yes,
2
definitely,
points
please.
to what, in fact, the question you had asked me and to what sir also said, that this is the Wayanad twin tunnel that sir was talking about, which is supposed to be an 8.5 kilometer tunnel between Calicut, Kozhikode and Wayanad. And the opening of the tunnel, it's a twin tunnel, and it's supposed to reduce the distance between Kozhikode and Wayanad and make it shorter. And the opening of the tunnel, or the tunnel in Wayanad, is very near to Vellarimala, which is just where this whole landslide has taken place. Okay, and the beauty of it is that they are still going ahead with the project, and every party is supporting it. And they have just last week done the what's it called, tender of it, and it has been awarded to a Bhopal company. So this tragedy happened in 2018. Wayanad was submerged. There was so much of issues. Nobody learned from it.
Yeah.
Now we have it in 2024. Everyone has gone and cried crocodile tears there. Okay. Everyone said, oh, it's so tragic, poor things, etc. But then please show it in your actions. What is it that the government is doing? Why are you allowing this to happen? And why is it that you see that stage 1 clearance was given? After that, why is MOEF not withdrawing this? They should suo motu withdraw it. Why are they not withdrawing it? But it's going ahead. Everyone is happy with it. And the beauty of it is that this is being a particular project being funded by a particular, project in Kerala called the KIFBI. It is Kerala Infrastructure Board, where they get certain type of money and they give this money for it. And it is a 2,100 crore project that is being done. That type of money is being spent. And while I was there, we were running a Navakiranam project, which was supposed to be voluntary relocation for people, hamlets within forests, which we said that 640 people came out within a year. And we had got at that point funding again from KIFBI, and those type of this KIFBI funding itself, from 100 crore it had been increased to 300 crore because of the type of results we were showing. And the beauty of it is that they have scaled it down and reduced it to 67 crores, whereas we have 5,000 applications which are pending and more coming in, which will reduce human-wildlife conflict, which will reduce people who are marginalized people from getting impacted by these type of, by natural calamities. They've reduced that. They don't have money for that. Then you ask them, why don't you give the money? No, we don't have money. But they can have money to give for a 2,100 crore project for double laning of a twin tunnel, which is so damaging, but they don't have money for actually benefiting marginalized people. So that's the other point that I wanted to bring to your attention. And the last point I wanted to say, you asked me about this, what's it called, which I did not answer actually, regarding how do you reconcile the FRA and all these eco-sensitive zone areas or zone notifications. For that, again, you see, if you look at the guideline itself, the eco-sensitive zone guidelines, very much you see who are the composition of that whole committee which will identify it. You are having a people's representative there. So what other way do you want it? You can't have the whole community come in. That's why you have representatives of various types of institutions who are going to represent there the causes of the people or the concerns of the people. And when you have the people's representative there, what other way that you want the representation to take place? So that is what it is already been included in it, and it's possibly again I don't mind being controversial and saying it. It's just it sounds good that you're saying that people's needs are not taken care of, you're not involving them. But please do see that there is another aspect of it. Again, being controversial and saying it. When individual rights are being settled in Kerala, for example, I'll tell you, most of these people who are in the forest, they're supposed to be, if they are having settlements or holdings larger than 4 hectares, they're supposed to limit it to 4 hectares. All those people who had up to 4 hectares, they have got their individual rights settled. Everyone who has more than 4 hectares have not wanted to get their individual rights settled because it will get limited to 4 hectares. So while we should understand, we have to be pro people, we have to be taking their concerns into account, but we cannot paint them with one brush and say that it's all romantic and nice and they are correct and they are this thing that is the only way, and everything else that is being done is wrong. That's not the way. One has to have a very realistic view that every community has the good, bad, ugly that spreads across, and there is no one brush with which you can paint it. So I'd like to
Thank you. Actually,
one more project of Karnataka.
Yes.
One. Now this she was telling that the
Sir, short में.
contractors-driven project. Contractors want that project to happen. She was telling. I would also support that. Hubli-Ankola railway line. It passes through one of the best forests. One has to do 800 hectares of forest to be lost, to be diverted for the project, and involving some 20,000 trees. 28 lakhs trees will have to be sacrificed. Now, these trees are, you cannot recreate. Human being cannot plant. Sometimes they say compensatory afforestation, forget it. God's gifted forest, can human being replace it? Human being has no capacity to reach anywhere near that. And you get the land for compensatory afforestation somewhere where nothing grows. So therefore, because he said short, so this contractors there want the railway project to come. Whether it is beneficial for society or not is not contractors' concern. Contractors' concern is because they can only make money if the project comes, and then they can fund the elections.
And out of new constructions only. Otherwise, why do we want such new constructions when we have such dilapidated buildings and roads? Why don't we spend that money and improve our existing infrastructure? Why do we want new infrastructure? That's only contractor driven, because it is only benefiting the contractors and the people associated with them. Nobody gets money out of repairs, out of refurbishing and upgrading. I say it from experience, being a forest officer and having used that money myself and seen how it is done. That's the real fact of the whole thing. Otherwise, why doesn't the narrative change that let me refurbish all my existing infrastructure, my roads, my buildings, instead of going for new constructions? And what is the big hurry that we are in? That we want to tear down and die ourselves and die all the biodiversity with us by making new roads, but we don't want to repair and make good whatever we are already having.
No, definitely.
जितने project Western Ghat में listed हैं, if all the projects come, Western Ghat has to be forgotten.
Actually, you are right, sir, and I don't disagree with this, because एक तो है कि the model we follow GDP, this kind of a epidemic disaster, they actually help GDP growth, because new construction brings more money, more consumption, more production.
Yeah.
And also this contract business, everyone knows. This is I think you said it very tightly. And also I must tell you, I should say this controversially also, I know many conservationists who has vested interest in many areas. When this Forest Conservation Amendment Bill came, several people wrote to me that you should not say anything about ecotourism. Then I found out they have their resorts or some big in some.
उनका दूसरा agenda है.
So this is, I think, the problem is not only with the thing that people who are supposed to talk about the conservation,
Yes.
they are also not saying it, because they have their own problem. They also fear कि हमारा कुछ वो ना हो जाए. Because see, so
उनका कुर्सी चला जाएगा.
अरे पहली चीज.
मतलब your stake, your land and your whole infrastructure you can develop. So I think the problem is everywhere, and I think we are just short-sighted. And conservation, there are, as I say, that there are people who do conservation as a job, as a profession. There are people who are stakeholders, they're part of the thing. So I think the whole conservation movement is driven by people who actually feel for the environment, and they want to get what I can do for the environment, not like you, what I have benefit. So resources there, so politics, everything is there. I think environment politics can be separated. People say that, sometimes environment is political, but I think it's political. When you're talking about land, then politics is you cannot just not talk about politics and you say that, we are doing conservation. So you have to say things, and I'm glad that we have you here today. We have heard a lot about you from people, and many people wrote me that they couldn't join today, and they said say our hello to them. So I think that speaks most. And so we should definitely, I can also ask question, you can speaking, but people are here. So let's, if you agree, we can spend some 20-25 minutes.
Definitely, even more.
So he has been waiting for a long time. So please, Jai, please. So Mike be here. So
Mike le lijiye.
Session.
So, sir, ma'am, why do you think?
Ask.
So, my name is Jay. I'm actually a clean air activist. I've been fighting the reverse air pollution. But that plan has obviously failed after 10 years of activism in that space. So, I have gone to Rewilding. I bought some revenue land on the edge of Retd Tiger Reserve. I wanted to ask you because I have a lot of questions. When I went to the PCCF and the director of Retd, and I said, I want some data on what trees are disappearing, native trees are disappearing from this habitat. Kuch knowledge nahi tha, kuch information nahi tha. So that's my first question. As a director or as a PCCF, do you have any knowledge about what's happening in your forest? Because everything starts and ends with the trees. So trees sa hi koi data nahi tha. मेरे को illegally collect करना पड़ा, and then the director of Rajans, asked me for my data. So I used his team and forest guards to collect the data with naturalists illegally because there was no information available. So that's my first question. My second question is these tribal and nomads that were in the forest and that have been moved to the edge of the forest. I give you an example of just my area. Okay, in my district there are 8,000 cattle of these tribals and nomads.
कौन सा district है?
Sir, मैं नाम ही नहीं लेना चाहता district का because I don't want to create problems for my own people. But 8,000 वहाँ जानवर हैं जो और हर जानवर के लिए ये लोग 1,000 रुपए फॉरेस्ट गार्ड को देते हैं per month to go deplete the forest. So that's 80 lakhs. I did some quick mathematics. I was going to the forest department illegally just in my district to deplete the forest. Do you think our forest stand a chance? आप जितना भी बॉर्डर बना लो, कुछ भी कर लो, and all night, forget 10 kilometers away. The tiger reserve marker is actually on my land. I bought the land because I wanted to grow the forest. Because sound really travels in a forest at night. All night I can hear stone crushers. Because it's not legal, it's happening illegally. So, the question again is, do we stand a chance?
No, this can destroy. This livestock
I don't
grazing.
even know who to call. The entire system is involved. But we all know who's involved in, these stone crushers and illegal mining. अब वो illegal कर दिया है, मतलब legal नहीं हो सकता तो illegal ही हो रहा है आपको.
My observation on your first question is about the tree species, which have disappeared. I told you, in fact, while speaking, some very fast 1 or 2 lines I told, that natural forests, it has variety of species. You go and see some of the Ghat forests or Western Ghat forests and the tropical and subtropical areas, you will have 400 species. Even after 38 years of service in forest department and another 11 years in the post-retirement, I myself will not be able to recognize many species. There are 400 species in Agumbe forests. One of the best, highest rate forests.
खत्म क्या हो रहा है? उसका डेटा है हमारे पास.
नहीं, उसका बता रहे हैं. खत्म क्या हो रहा है वो तो because of climate change also a lot of species composition is changing. Some species which used to be 20% may become. I told you, set fire in the forest, Xylella xylocarpa regenerates. What does it mean? When Xylocarpa is regenerating, Legastomia parviflora is disappearing. Terminalia speciosa is disappearing, etc., etc. The species component is changing very fast in all the forests. But you have to for your knowledge, I would like to tell if the species, disappearing species because of the climate change and because of these cattle, the livestock grazing, which many species, in fact, one of the problems of the Sal regeneration in Dehradun forest was because the livestock, the frost was one, and then the livestock has been attacking the Sal regeneration, and therefore those are all predominantly Sal forests. Because I had been to Rajaji last year only for evaluation of their tiger reserve. So there I found that especially the northern boundary towards Saharanpur, a lot of people, in fact, people are knocking at the doors at the fringes of the Rajaji Park. And many a times, हमको तो वो बताया कि this is the boundary, but I am sure the boundary is every time receding at the rate of 100 meters per 3 years.
Another thing I want to tell you, I think I'm the only conservationist on the boundary of Rajaji. The rest are all hunters.
So
I'm the
actually,
only one without a gun.
yeah, let also others ask questions. Otherwise, we'll continue. You know. So
Thank you for the discussion. First of all, it was eye-opening. So I'm currently working like 2.5 hours away from Dehradun in Uttarakhand only. So when you were talking about data, let's not talk about our data. If we can talk about two official data, so I think government entries only, for example, forest fire data for last season. Just look at Forest Department's data and Forest Survey of India's data. You'll find complete difference. By big difference, I mean, if there are 200 spots of forest fire incidents in exercise data, then Forest Department's data will show you 20 incidents. Same it, yeah. So that definitely is a problem, and there are n number of reasons. I don't want to go into that.
No, I concede. फायर को पहले तो कल्चर था फॉरेस्ट डिपार्टमेंट में कि फायर बताओ ही नहीं, बहुत कोई प्रेशर करे तो बोल दो 100 हेक्टेयर साहब जला है,
ग्राउंड फायर
वो भी, और कोई सीडलिंग नहीं जला है.
पर रिमोट सेंसिंग से थोड़ा फर्क पड़ गया.
हाँ, अब रिमोट से अब नाउ एवरीथिंग कम्स and
that data is also not completely accurate because they also take into consideration the agricultural waste burning and everything.
Yeah.
But still, there is like huge difference.
No, but the area point can be checked.
Yeah.
Satellites do tell you.
Yeah. Then they have to make those efforts. Anyways, but my question is something else.
बताइए, please come to the question so that others can also get an opportunity.
So, because we were talking about ecotourism and we do understand the loopholes in it and whatever problems we need. But for a state like Uttarakhand, which is majorly dependent on tourism for the livelihood, ecotourism has somehow, even for the people, provided an escape from that guilt for a lot of people. हम जंगल बर्बाद नहीं कर रहे हैं, हम तो देख रहे हैं, हम लोगों को और मिला रहे हैं. For example, the area in which I work is the area near Tea Dam. It's basically वो जो lake है पूरा 50 kilometers का, that is the area where I'm working. And वहाँ गांव के जो लोग हैं, मतलब they
पिथौरागढ़ में
नहीं सर,
डेरी में
मेरे वहाँ पे भी टनल प्रोजेक्ट शुरू हुआ है. So they're destroying that area as well. So, but people are saying that we do not have tourism like Mussoorie, Khawati and all. But we can attract certain people, for especially the trekkers or people who educational tourism and stuff. So that can also come under ecotourism in some way, whatever they are idea.
Difficult to control, that's all. If you want to.
So, ma'am,
shall I get it?
आप बताइए.
Shall I get it?
मैं भी एक चीज बताऊंगा, आप पहले बताइए.
I'll come from a very, very, experience point of view because I was the APCCF ecotourism in Kerala. So therefore, I have dealt with this issue, and it is today, I think, one of the most troublesome problems that exist. Now, let me just break it up into small bits. First of all, that when we were in the academy and we were being taught by our own seniors who today may be retired, but at that point of time they did tell us, and they said, what is ecotourism? They said the footfall has to be very small, it should be educational, a person should visit it and come back, and then the human footprint should be very small. You should not leave, you should leave the place as it is. Can any of us, any forest officer of us, I say, put it on us forest officers, because as far as ecotourism is concerned in forest areas, can we say with our full conscience that we have actually abided by that? None of us can say that. And believe me that today so-called ecotourism is just economic tourism, and that is what now we are trying to spread as the model for being forest friendly and ensuring that funds come in. This, believe me, is going to destroy our forests and destroy it in such a terrible way, because it's already destroying. Because before it is smuggling that you were talking about, poaching you were talking about, but here you are actually getting people to come in and destroy the forest and come back and say, wow, I conserved it and I got money. That's not the way. I'll tell you, in Kerala, at that point of time when I was APCCF, they spent 9 crore rupees on ecotourism, and for what? For making cement elephants. For making jackfruit trees which grows in Kerala just abundantly out of cement with jackfruit hanging. I asked, what is this going on? Why would you spend 9 crores in 1 year for this sort of ecotourism? And it is a holiday tourism that they are doing, no? Basically on every weekend, everyone just rushes in and just spends their picnic time, eats whatever they feel like, has their fruity bottles, throws it, and you know what happens? I have those photographs. It's so sad. The monkey comes out and takes a fruity bottle and is busy drinking from it and trying to get the leftovers of it. The wild pigs come out and they are foraging in the rubbish dumps. Now you all must have heard about that poor Arikomban and that other elephant which goes to garbage dumps and tries to pull out rotten vegetables. Is this what is ecotourism we are talking about? And this is what in our Forest Conservation Amendment Act, that is what is being propagated as the way of providing employment.
To promote more.
And
to promote.
one more thing, ecotourism, what we are seeing, the new, whenever these areas are there, now this is everything corporatized. So big companies will come, in name of ecotourism, they will develop some...
Exactly. Yeah. And you won't believe what...
Golf courses
so
are very...
Let me just finish this 3 points I just finished with that. That you see that there was a Pallivasal Unreserve in Munnar, where it's supposed to be, it was a forest area. It was on this Mudirapura river, and it was a slope more than 40 degrees. And it was, when I was there, it was absolutely kept as such, and there was no problem. We should have notified it as a reserve forest. I left, it did not happen. Today there are 7-star hotels there. That whole slope is developed. You should have seen what happened in the floods. And this is one of the parts where Gadgil committee said that you should keep it pristine, don't touch it. Okay, that's one point. The second point that I wanted to make is that we talk about, pilgrims going. Sabarimala is one of the things. Now, as I understand, that pilgrimage was supposed to be a person who had that Shraddha in their hearts and minds and became fit and went there as a test of their own faith that they went there. But is it that what we are saying, that anyone who wants to sit in a helicopter and an aircraft and just go there and come back? Is that what we are promoting as ecotourism? And believe me, they have opened an airstrip, called the Satram airstrip in Vandiperiyar, in near Sabarimala. And that airstrip, they have said, because they want to give training for NCC cadets. Okay. Defense Ministry has given permission for it. And that's my question. That MOE, the Gadgil committee, which we are blaming the states, the Gadgil committee report was submitted to MOEF. What happened? Why did you not communicate it to the Defense Ministry and say this cannot be done? And can you say that this is for defense when you are training NCC cadets? We very well know what is the reason behind it. It is only for tourism. Okay. Now the next part about it is that this particular airstrip is within 10 kilometers of Periyar Tiger Reserve. It has not gone to the National Board of Wildlife for clearance. They have just done it. And they say they have got Defense Ministry's clearance. The same way the Sabarimala airport is being done, and what all violations are taking place, God alone knows, it will also go through, probably. And this is again in the eco-sensitive area, that one which was identified by the Gadgil committee. That's what's happening. Why it is happening, I think it doesn't take too much intelligence to guess. Probably it takes a lot of training to understand why it should happen despite knowing that it should not happen. I think that is what the training that is being imparted, and that is what our whole education or service should teach us, how we can justify something that is unjustifiable. So with that,
And just this Goa example, like now everyone is want to have a second property in Goa.
Yeah.
And the property prices, everything you see, the Goa which was 10, 12 years ago, it's not the same.
Yeah.
Developing like anything. Lot of destruction
People are
taking.
living.
all gone.
So,
Yeah.
because they are from Uttarakhand, एक ही मिनट में बताऊं, बहुत short में. In 1978, I think हमारे जितना बुढ़ा आदमी कोई इस कमरे में नहीं है. 1978, I used to be in Mussoorie Academy doing foundational course. And Kempty Fall used to be 13 kilometers from our academy. And we used to go there walking Sundays. Recently, I had been there. You can't drive. There is a traffic jam. From Mussoorie to... I mean, everywhere there is a resort, there is a hotel, there is a eatery place, and right up to the fall, there are a lot of garbage, where is the beauty? The beauty is totally gone. Another example from same Dehradun is this Sahastradhara. Sahastradhara, Dehradun, we were there for 2 years, 76 to 78. 76 I have seen, 77 I have seen. Beautiful place. Sahastradhara. Beautiful. Warm water will come out at many places. And beautiful. You stand at a place and you can take picture of them. Today, you can't recognize. I went there recently. I had an occasion. I went with my granddaughter and showed her both the places and told her कि ये 1976 और 70 में कैसा था और आज कैसा है. And then you say this tourism. One more point to support. Your Corbett, some cranky forest officer. Corbett में क्या किया? साल का फॉरेस्ट कटवा के और and Supreme Court has to intervene. He has his own style of tourism. He cut down sal forest. Do you cut down sal forest? Such huge, beautiful sal forest and make water holes for tigers. And then he 2 hectare, I think, safari he enclosed in a corridor. We are trying to free the corridor for the movement of wild animals, whether it is elephants or tiger. And here is a person who has enclosed, I think, 20 hectare for safari. Those types of guys, the mad guys, they have no business to stay in the forest
But sir,
department.
now the amendment allows for zoo safari tourism, like as a first activity,
forest.
As a
not a
forestry
non-first
activity.
activity. So he was
Right.
doing
And
everything
that-
legally.
yeah.
That is, law allows it.
That is what
only
the
God will
preamble
save.
says, huh?
Only God will save. More and more why nots will happen.
Sir, God will, I don't want to say that, but probably we are all hurtling towards destruction.
Yeah.
So, and they say that this earth will anyway survive after post-human, no? It will re-evolve. Maybe that's what we are all
It will
hurtling towards.
re-evolve. It has to re-evolve. You destroy Mother Nature, Mother Earth, and you will pay the penalty.
Yeah, can take
Now
more
we will go to
questions.
some other questions.
Hi, thank you for the discussion. So I had 2 questions. One was related to grasslands. So does this ESA approach, for example, is it adequate for grasslands? Because there's such fluid habitats and they're constantly changing in terms of species composition and everything. And so policy perspective, they're in a very ambiguous position. So in grasslands, what approach do you suggest we follow from a policy perspective? Secondly, these ESAs and ESZs are ultimately also still geographically, they define in terms of administratively and geographically too. But ecosystems are also affected by what happens around them. So, for example, if I build a dam, the areas downstream, no matter how far they will be from the dam, will be terribly affected. So, in terms of that, because even if you declare an ESA downstream of that dam, no matter how far it will still be affected by the dam which is out there. So, how do you account for these things when again, from a policy perspective, how do you account for that and what mechanisms you evolve when you're looking into that?
See, all these mitigative measures, all these mitigative measures of the projects, any project, it is not at all the mitigation. If the elephant moves out of the reserve, they say mitigative measure. Elephant you can't stop by putting the barricades. Elephant-proof trenches have been destroyed. Even the rail barricades have, elephant either has hurt itself, or even the barricades have been pushed and in the poor soil condition, the barricades have become horizontal. There is no verticality to prevent elephant. And any project, there is no mitigation. Nature, हमने बताया that Sal forest which that Kalagarh DFO destroyed, can human being create that type of Sal forest? I have seen that forest. आँख से आंसू आता है देखिए. Beautiful forest, lush evergreen, and आपको एक पेड़ काटने में भी आपको शर्म आनी चाहिए. आप फॉरेस्ट ऑफिसर हो.
Shall I? Yeah. So the 3 points that you raised. First of all, that how does this eco-sensitive zone or area take care of grasslands, if at all? So as far as protected areas are concerned, probably that was what the intention was, that if you are having a grassland which is abutting the protected area, naturally you would include it. And again, you would not keep a particular kilometer radius, you would try to include the whole grassland. But naturally, that's not being done. Probably will never be done, because grasslands are the best place where people can take over and do their constructions. So that is the whole thing. We do not have a grassland policy for our country. We only make lip service and say we should protect our grasslands. We don't do it. The Great Indian Bustard is a prime example of how we are destroying that species. It's on the verge of going. Maybe it will go on our watch. But that's the reason why we have not done anything, because we do not want a grassland policy, even though we know we should have one to protect it. So that's the reality of the situation. The third point that you're saying, what should we do? We should do it. We all know what is to be done. Now it only requires the political will and the desire to actually protect these areas and to recognize that it's not just the human beings and our lives that are important. In fact, the whole biodiversity is important. You have to give them place. You have to give them space. And that's what you are seeing, that this whole thing which is going on, they're talking about the Bhedia and Brij and things like that. What's the real cause? You destroyed their habitat. You're not ensuring that they are having a habitat to live in. This is going to happen. This is an emblem. This is an emblem of grasslands. What are we doing about it? Why don't we have a grassland policy? Why are we not forcing? We may try. It will never happen. But this is the reality of our times, that we know the issues, but we make lip service, we go to all conventions and speak of what we are doing, but our intentions are just the opposite. We do not implement it, and probably we will never implement it. It will all get lost while we are there. Okay, that's what I say about it. Then that one more point that one last point that I wanted to say about it is that what are we talking about grasslands outside protected areas or outside forest areas? In our reserve forest, we've taken all the grasslands and planted it up. What's the where is the swamp left? Where are the water bodies left? Where the shallow water bodies left? Where are the grasslands left? We have planted everything. That is, again, I say that we have this, our whole training, when we are imparted training, is all about, first of all, ensuring that we plant. Where we plant, how we plant is not at all recognized. No one tells us don't plant here. We are given money, we are given a target, plant. Spend the money. So we all have to forcibly do it. And what do? We cannot show failures. So what we do is we plant all the fast growing species within our forest, which are going, we very well know is going to destroy our forest. When are we going to change our training? When are we going to change this type of funding? When are we going to change the way we look at forests? Why do we look at forests as something where we spend money, we have these schemes? Why don't we look at it from the point of view that you come here, you conserve it? Nature does not require help. It was there before you. Why don't you allow that to stay as such rather than poke your nose and try to do something about it? And just to finish that, what is happening in Munnar? All the Shola grasslands, they were all planted with eucalyptus with wattle. And they were all, and the natural grasslands were destroyed. We were cutting that wood, that eucalyptus, and giving it to the paper company, the HNL, at a reduced subsidized rate to convert it to paper. And this was going on year after year. Therein, I want to bring in one people's movement that has happened in Kerala. They said, we don't want your exotic species. We will not have any more of it. You have to remove eucalyptus, wattle, acacias. Allow the natural, if you want to plant natural indigenous species. So that's one very nice thing that has happened in the past 2 years.
Beautiful. On grassland, very small observation. You must have found, I will not explain in detail, sharp 1 or 2 lines, on grassland itself. Western Ghats, my experience is also the same Western Ghats. Now the grassland planted and all, she has already explained. But then wattles have taken all over Ooty, wattles again, all grassland. Grasslands were the climatic climax.
Yes.
Grassland. And if you think that you want to go above God and plant it up with wattles and other species, then you are mistaken. And grassland, large number of rivers originate from Western Ghats. The Western Ghats have sholas and grassland. Sholas, and they all hold water during rains, whenever it rains, and during the summer they release that water, and therefore some of the streams during the summer season will become perennial. And it is the grassland which is supplying water. You will be surprised that during the summer, when other place is 40 degrees centigrade temperature, that grassland between the two sholas and the sholas, they all supply water to the stream. And that is how some of the streams, and slowly what is happening, grassland is being burnt, destroyed, as he said, has been planted up, has been destroyed. People have started taking their cattle, and in the process, the streams have dried up. There is no summer flow in those streams. And what is the impact? The flow of water in the rivers to which this stream feeds has depleted, and so on and so forth. Boli.
No, actually, you're right. And west, the westland across India, basically in the administrative terms, these are westland. So these are areas which are westland is supposed to be developed. Okay, so this is how things are. So, any more questions? Then we can.
Boli.
Yeah, I think we should allow new people to take. Please on the back, because then.
Thank you for the question, sir. I'm Diganshi. I work with the environment you referred to. So, there was this one interesting situation where we got a query about basically permissible activities around eco-sensitive zones. And I remember having called the office, the forest department, to know about the zonal master plan for, I think one of there's ESZ. And they exclaimed saying that they didn't understand what exactly I was asking.
Naturally.
And at that time I was saying you, so I thought maybe I was not asking the right question. So I started doubting myself whether is it that I'm not probably used the right term, or what is the issue. And I mean, ultimately when I started learning about the subject matter more, I realized that there's actually no zonal master plan at all, and which is from where my query arises, which is from your perspective, what do you feel is the real issue that these plans have actually not materialized at all? Because I mean, from a textbook understanding, it appears that if we have a zonal master plan in place, that would actually resolve a lot of our issues related to what can or cannot be permitted, or what is to be regulated in ESZ.
So, ma'am,
Shall I? Okay. So I think I already answered that.
Yes.
Okay. So basic thing is, as I said, that they have prepared these notifications only to tide over the pressure from the Supreme Court. So now they are in a win-win situation as far as they understand, because now they are not bound by the 10 kilometers that which had been put by the Supreme Court. Now they say, oh, I have a notification for eco-sensitive zone, which is supposed to be somewhere 500 meters, maybe 1 kilometer. Now I have notified it. Now I don't want to take the next step, because then I would have to make a master plan and actually abide by it, and it has to be something which is eco-friendly. But I don't want to do it. I just want to do whatever I feel like. So now I have got out of the changul of the National Board of Wildlife, the Standing Committee National Board of Wildlife, because otherwise eco-sensitive zone proposals had to go to them. Now I have only this 3 kilometers or 1 kilometer, and there I will say that it is already notified, so I won't send it anyway. Notwithstanding the fact that it was very clearly said that the 10 kilometers still applies unless you have your zonal master plan in place, which is being implemented and which is being monitored by the monitoring committee. But who cares? Who's actually monitoring all this or recording all this? Nobody is bothered. It's all just ho gaya na, so it's fine. So that's the whole attitude that is there. No one is actually working for the cause sincerely. Otherwise, if someone was there are officers. Please don't get me wrong. There are some very sincere officers. That is how our forests are still there. And I give it full credit to the forest department and to the forest service. and mainly our field staff, that our forests are still there because of them and their hard work and their commitment. There are some who are doing it, but that's not the general milieu, and that's not what our political and other pressure groups want. So that's how it is happening. And just to finish that point, that's what you see. People who qualify and come to the bureaucracy, again, it's my personal opinion, I'm just airing it, that's the way I feel about it. Basically, everyone is looking for a good job. And they come there with that fact that they have got a good job and they do it very well. They're very efficient, they do it very well. But they do it as per the directives. If their direction is cut the trees, make it this way, they'll do it. If tomorrow it says, no, do conservation, they'll do it. But that is what the whole thing is, that you see what is the basic guiding factor for which they are getting, that what they should do. They obey that well. And how many come in because they're committed to conservation? How many develop it as their passion? There are many, but it's not the general rule. So that's why it's not happening, is what I would like to state.
So actually, now time is very less. I will take two more questions. One is Rohit and then you. Yeah. And also to whom you are asking the question.
Hello, ma'am. Hello, sir. Thanks for a very illuminating discussion so far. I quite like the title of today's discussion as well. So for the first time, we are using the term ecosystem conservation. I would have added perhaps landscape conservation. So the ESA, ESZ approach is actually visionary in that respect. I don't think there is any other framework which talks about, conservation at a broad scale. So, and I'm following on that. Now, despite it being such a useful vision, and despite you saying that perhaps if we had these very specific plans in place, everyone knows what is to be done, what is not to be done, everyone is happy, even the local stakeholder, which are the communities, are very happy. Despite this, it has not really taken state. So my question is that there are three things perhaps that is lacking. One is the widespread awareness about the approach itself to local stakeholders, which could have been the first step in the entire process. Second, being a critical review of methodology, how these ESAs and ESZs are in the first place notified or their geographical spread, determined. And so these are perhaps the steps that we missed doing, and just wanted your comments.
From whom, ma'am?
From
नहीं आप बोलेंगी
पहले आप बोलिए सर, फिर मैं
पहले आप ही बोल.
अच्छा. So I'll just again say that, look, which I said that as far as specifically for eco-sensitive zones and areas, in both of them it has been factored in that community participation and their opinion is taken. That is why we put in a public representative in that also. In the areas it is very clearly given about community discussions. Not only that, you see, that is what happens is that it's not just something that is suddenly notified. Once the draft notification comes up, it is put up on the MOE website. And then there is public interaction. It's supposed to be, whether it happens or not is a separate thing. That is also supposed to be done. So that, I think, answers to some extent, but you are very right. We should be involving people and then understanding, their requirements and their aspirations. And in fact, just an aside, that if you see, most successful forest officers are those who actually take from the community, who learn from the community, because we are suddenly posted to a new place. We don't know what it is. So who are the people who tell us? It is the people who stay there. It is the staff who stays there. They are the ones who tell us what are the requirements, what are the problems, how we can actually make it into policy, how we can actually implement it. Those are the successful TFOs, and I always attribute whatever I did to that I learned from my staff, I learned from my people, and they told me, and I ensured that I used the power that was there to implement it. Then the last part that you said, in which in fact I had talked to Debaditya, he had asked me that some of the things that we would speak about. That is where I feel that the civil society and the NGO really comes in. NGOs come in. That rather than taking up individual projects or trying to do something, this is the evaluation they should be doing on a continuous basis. That you see, I'll tell you with a very clear example, that eco-sensitive areas, there was a very nice report done somewhere in 2008 or 2009. Okay, that I forget which is the organization which did it, but they did a very nice analysis. Till today, you can read it and understand a lot about eco-sensitive areas. Okay, but Kalpvriksh, and I think there is one Menaka Kapoor or somebody who's done it very nicely, analyzed and put in place. After that, there is no report on it. Nothing, we don't have an update. And in fact, at that point, there were many more areas which were there. Now, if you see on MOEF website, many of these areas, Pachmadi and all, are not there. So what happened to them? They all lapsed probably, nothing was done. So we don't have an update in public domain. I think this is what the civil society, NGOs, etc. should be doing. The same is for eco-sensitive zones. Where is the study? That we know that I found out from the ministry there are some 480 protected areas which have these notified eco-sensitive zones. But where is the study? What is this area? Is it really effective? How is it being implemented? Where is the master plan? We don't know this. We don't have this data and knowledge. This is something I really think that, the civil society...
We are working on this. Actually, this report we have been working since last 2 years, but the data is so fragmented and, Ministry also have only the notification and public consultation. But what happens before that, there's something we try to track. So it will take some time, but that report we hopefully by next 6-7 months will be able to publish some update. That is there.
MOEF also doesn't purposely keep it because it's difficult for them to answer them. So that was a typical thing we had to keep giving Parliament answers. We say we don't collate this data in the ministry levels.
No, but we try to see some case studies as well. So that I will also reach out to you for...
Sure. Yeah.
Now, I have an observation here. Despite, most of us say that because the eco-sensitive zone and Gadgil's recommendations have not been accepted and most states have not come on board to notify Western Ghat as no-go area or eco-sensitive area. So therefore, therefore the destructions are taking place. No, absolutely no. Why? Now, Karnataka, I'll take the example of Karnataka. Western Ghat of Karnataka has 16,000 square kilometers by and large, roughly area, of which 12,000 square kilometers is forest, which has regulations. There are plenty of rules, regulations. You should not cut trees, you should not destroy and should preserve your grasslands, preserve your sholas. Then another 3,000 square kilometer is maybe wooded areas which is governed by Karnataka Preservation of Trees Act. So therefore 15,000 square kilometer out of 16,000 square kilometer is already governed by some very strong rules, regulations. So further notification will not bring any value to that. It is already governed by very strong rules, regulations. They are either protected areas, Wildlife Protection Act, Tiger Conservation is there, then Karnataka Forest Act and things like that. Similarly in Kerala also, Indian Forest Act is applicable. So therefore, only 15% area. So the destruction is taking place, at least destruction should not take place in 85% of area. So the very reason that destruction has been taking place all over, these laws are meaningless. Despite these laws are, and now the laws have been diluted also, despite these laws are there, has been diluted, despite the destructions have been taking place. So therefore, let us not only blame the states for having not notified Gadgil's report, both the states, or maybe even Maharashtra.
Last question, sir. Then very quickly, because we are already entering time.
As being continued private development and decision policy challenging the court and the policy like decision challenge the policy level. Why you make that policy that is unreasonable?
मेरे समझ में नहीं आया.
So basically, he's asking if there's some policy which is unreasonable, unsustainable, can we challenge that in the court?
अच्छा वो तो खरी रहे हैं.
Precedents, ma'am, India, worldwide, it will definitely go if content. corporators will go continue, then they will.
चलो ये ना मैं लिख कर देता हूँ इसमें. हाँ, तो मैं
I think it is.
देखो पॉलिसी मैटर पे आइडियली कोर्ट शुड नॉट इंटरफेयर. ठीक है, कोर्ट्स कैन ओनली सी कॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल कोई चीज़ अगर गलत है या लॉफुल नहीं है वो देख सकती है. बाकी जो लॉ चैलेंज होते हैं, मैम भी उस पर पार्ट है, तो यूजुअली प्रोसेस तो लंबा होता है और ये कॉन्स्टेंटली फॉलोअप करना पड़ता है, कॉन्स्टेंटली उसमें लगे रहना पड़ता है, तो ये चीज़ चलती रहती है. तो वो है, लेकिन इतनी सारी चीज़ों में जो है आपका फिर फेट कंप्लाई होने के चांस ज़्यादा हो जाते हैं. आप जब तक लड़ोगे तब तक आपकी आधी चीज़ें खत्म ही हो जाएंगी. तो इसे सेंसिटिव बहुत है, ये टाइम सेंसिटिव बहुत है. तो आई होप आई आंसर्ड.
Yeah. Beautifully.
One last, Aruna, please.
बोलिए.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. Well, I especially teach. I'm an educator, environmental educator, working with an IB school in Noida. Well, my question is should we allow students from the grassroots level to come into conservation? Because we have done so far whatever is required, and we have seen that nothing is working as well. So we know that students are the
best
future
place,
of the country.
the best place where awareness can be created.
Yes.
Of course they should come
in. The young mind, it must be filled in their mind that they should be aware of the environment conservation.
And also, I think the students should take into the forest, not the zoos, and all they know is the African species.
African.
And let me just add one last point to it, that you see that it is because there is so much pushback against anti-conservation policies or implementation that we have been able to save so much. But supposing there was no voice, then what would the situation have been? So we need more and more people into conservation, even though it's a very depressing field to be in. But we need more and more people, and we need newer generations to come and add to the force till one day comes where conservation, we have a green party in our country, and there is a green mandate that actually, like this says, we actually have a green mandate for our country. And not just looking in terms of GDP or whatever. Probably the way our environment is behaving, we'll reach there very soon, faster than later. It looks like that.
So, sir, any concluding note, both of you? Then we will.
No, this is a very good forum provided for a discussion on ESZ and ESA. And the ground reality. We have spoken from the bottom of our heart. The complete ground realities have been placed before the audience here. And the audience questions were also some very good questions, some superlative questions, starting from grasslands and then ecosystem zone, ESA, etc. The problem with the forest and environment is no one says that it should not be preserved. No one says that. Everyone likes, when it comes to him or her, they would say, no, this can be made an exception and he can be permitted, she can be permitted. So therefore, the battle is on, and I am very happy that a lot of you have connected, including this teaching at the school level is a phenomenal work. Therefore, I think we must produce children. The mind should be now sharpened, and it should be directed in this field, and so that only they can take this forward. And because we have all been knowing, we have very pessimistic view, whether it is Himalayas or Western Ghat, things are all, suddenly you hear that so many 500 millimeter of rain and this is washed away, 200 people have disappeared, but only 10 have died. Because other bodies have gone into Ganges, river Ganges. So it's a very good discussion. We should keep holding such discussions. I am sure some of the educational institutions have come forward and should be able to carry it forward. And I wish all of you all the best. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Devaditya, for calling. And I just like to say that it's really nice that we are given an opportunity to speak, because people like me are usually not wanting to be heard. So it's a nice opportunity that where we can speak and speak for conservation. So that's great. And it was really nice seeing such a wonderful audience who listened so carefully and were so involved with it. So I think we should continue having these type of discussions, especially with people who are ready to speak the facts and not just project a viewpoint which looks rosy and looks that we've done a lot. So I think that's very important. So thank you, Vidhi, and thank you, Devi.
Yeah, thank you, Teacher Singh sir and ma'am. And actually, when we started Green Mandate, the purpose was that this space for conversation is slowly it becomes monologue, or we are not bringing the real issue. So since beginning, it's some third year now, we thought that we'll only invite people who are actually experienced significant on that issue and who can speak their heart out. So thank you, both of you, and B.K. Singh sir, you two came from Bangalore, and the morning fight he took, and then he came today only, and then coming here with this energy, so this is fabulous. And ma'am, you also, so thank you very much. And we also want to thank our supporter, Reinvented Foundation, and Sandhu Singhal for supporting the climatic systems work at Vidhi. There is a small, this publication we published, this Green Hour. So this started last year, that tracking parliamentary things, all the developments parliament. And this has received very good response as well. And there is one publication of Vidhi. So there's some 25 reforms we should have. So I request, Shari, please. This.
ये हमको दे रहा है ना? Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for joining today. So please do keep coming, and this recording we'll put on Vidhi's YouTube channel very soon.
Oh, that's true.
Thank you very much.
Very good compilation.